Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. This is your Monday, December 11 edition of the HGP Nightly News. I'm Travis Chase. We have what you need to know this evening. Ruckus in the National Assembly. The Speaker stamps his authority. The police called in and pandemonium broke loose in the House. Hear more from Roydon James.
Guyana's parliament took a new low on Monday after police were called in to remove opposition MP Juan Edghill, who refused to follow the orders of the Speaker. On Friday, it was Santa in the parliament. Now on Monday, high drama unfolded in the House again. It all started when the Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Barton Scotland, agreed to stick to the time frame for the examination of the budget of the Ministry of the Presidency. It was earlier agreed that 2 hours would have been dedicated for the examinations of the estimates, revenue and expenditure. When the first 2 hours expired, the Speaker granted additional time, but said it was time to move on when the additional time ended. But opposition spokesman on economic services, Mr. Edghill, demanded more time. The Speaker then informed Mr. Edghill that he was out of order. Mr. Edghill then told the Speaker that he had no problem being out of order.
Sir,
that I must
on a matter
order
of
you,
principle, I stand up to be out of order, sir.
That I must
because
order you to leave.
If we have four additional programs that have been added to the Ministry of the Presidency, and the same 2 hours that was given last year is going to be given to this year with 4 additional programs, it means the government don't want scrutiny of this budget. That is what it means.
The honourable
and I will
member,
stand up and be out of order, sir.
the honourable member is out of order, and I must order you to leave this chamber and take no further part in the business of this matter for this.
As the exchange between the Speaker and Mr. Edghill heated up, the Speaker made his way out of the chamber as the police were called in to dislodge Mr. Edghill from his seat and escort him out of the chamber.
Sergeant at Arms, you will take steps to enforce the Speaker's direction. If you need assistance, then you will have to get it. And remember, Mr. Shearer, please take your seat. I am not entertaining comments at this stage. When we are through with this matter, then we will proceed.
Despite the drama started by Mr. Edghill's posture, the parliamentary opposition says the Speaker should be held responsible for sinking the National Assembly to a new low.
I've seen egregious breaches in this chamber from the other side that he refused to act on. Yeah. And on this issue, suddenly the police is called in. Yeah. So we're going to have to, he would have to deal with this personally, the Speaker. Yes. Yeah. And there has to be an apology to all of our members of Parliament, and we have to take further action on this matter. Yeah, exactly.
Minister of State Joseph Harmon said the Speaker acted correctly by taking a stand in the matter. He said all members of the House must know that the Speaker is the ultimate arbiter of the Parliament.
The Speaker is the person who controls the business in this House. And he cannot, Mr. Edghill or no other member of the House, can decide that they will violate these rules of the House by refusing to take action when the Speaker tells them to do so. If this were to be allowed to go like that, we will have chaos. Because no one respects the Speaker's ruling anymore, and we can do as we wish. What's the purpose of having us here in this House? So Mr. Edghill must know, the PPP must know, that the Speaker's ruling must be obeyed.
Former House Speaker Raphael Trotman, currently Minister of Natural Resources, expressed indignation at what he has observed recently in terms of parliamentary demonstrations by the opposition members of the House.
We are quite distressed at what we see is an evolving pattern of disrespect. It was meted out against His Excellency the President a few weeks ago on November the 2nd. There has never been a disrespect of the kind seen in Parliament on the 2nd of November, and we have never seen today's events repeated before. Previously there were incidents where people hurled objects at former speakers in the 1970s, but nothing as we have seen. And what is more amazing is the rapid descent. That in November you would see that, and then In December, you see something else, and we have to do maintain order.
Police brutality! Police brutality! Police brutality! Police brutality! Police brutality!
Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
On the police blotter, we tell you now that 5 persons are now in police custody following the discovery of the mutilated body of 19-year-old Renella Antonia Belfield of Canterbury Walk, Betafawactin, East Coast, Demerara. The body of the Qualfon employee was Monday morning discovered in a cemetery at Triumph, East Coast, Demerara, with her face mutilated. Passers-by made the discovery, and when police got to the scene, Belfield's hands were on her stomach and her pants were pulled below her hips. Family members last saw her alive on Saturday morning. This is a developing story, and we here at Nightly News will keep on top of this. More than 24 persons were rushed to the Georgetown Public Hospital on Monday as an overcrowded minibus toppled several times on the Triumph Railway Embankment Road. Javon Vickery was on the scene. He reports now.
When Nightly News arrived on the scene, most of the injured were being placed into cars and shuttled to the hospital, some covered in blood, while others were on the parapet in pain. According to eyewitnesses, the minibus seen here was speeding along the railway embankment when it struck this car seen here and toppled about 6 times. One of the injured told this newscast that she had an exchange of words with a tout on the minibus park for placing passengers in the minibus beyond its 15-passenger seating capacity.
Since when I was in the bus, me and the conductor get wrong. I tell him that he cannot overload the bus because he said that 4 persons in a seat. I said, no, I already have my daughter, let 3 go. He ain't come in the bus. He blam in the bus door and just ignore we and he go away because he want to fetch 4 persons. So I said, man, I gonna call my daughter because my daughter is traffic police, right? He said, you do you want, and he blam in the door.
The driver of the motor car said it all happened within the blink of an eye.
I put me signal by time it happened so quick, I didn't even know.
From where you were driving, did you see him coming?
Coming down from town. Huh? I was coming down from town, from the road. And I signaled to turn. It happened so quick, like then I see the man start turning and go.
The woman explained that during the commute, she had cautioned the driver about his speed and the loudness of his music in the vehicle, none of which he considered positively.
What about this nonsense? They have to drive slow because you can't see when a car coming. You gotta drive slow on this road.
The driver, however, hadn't much to say.
I tell you what going on just now?
Up to news time, there were no reports of serious or life-threatening injuries. Meanwhile, 2 persons of the east coast of Demerara were killed in an accident on Sunday night. They were identified as Stephen Phillips of Buxton and Abina Hubbard of Melanie. They died when the car in which they were traveling in overturned at Perseverance, Myconi. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Javon. We take you now to the scene of what could have been a major disaster. Firefighters are being credited for their tactical firefighting mode that morning. Here are the details. A section of the Giftland Mall at Turkine is now badly damaged due to a fire that erupted Saturday last. But firefighters and staff of the Giftland Mall are being credited for avoiding what could have been a major catastrophe. Chairman of the Giftland Mall, Roy Beepat, told the Nightly News that the fire started in the Royal Castle section of the mall.
At 6:10 this morning, my maintenance team, my security team, noticed fire coming from the Royal Castle vent. Mr. Glenn Valentine, who is our contractor for the air conditioning, was on hand, having worked all night, and him and his crew, along with the Giftland maintenance crew, tackled the problem, found the source of the smoke was coming from a Royal Castle storeroom, a Royal Castle supervisor's office.
Firefighters controlled the fire within minutes, but it took some time to clear the smoke. A concrete wall to the back of the building had to be broken to clear some of that smoke that had engulfed that section.
They put the fire out. During the course of the time between the fire started and they putting the fire out, a tremendous amount of smoke was generated. We don't know what was inside the smoke or what it was that caught fire. That is still to be determined, but I could tell you everything is we're on top of the control.
Mr. Bipat assured that the fire did not affect the entire store and it will be business as usual.
So after venting out the building, we should be good for Christmas shopping by 10 o'clock.
Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. A senior official of ExxonMobil clears the air over that US $18 million signing bonus. It's not secretive, says ExxonMobil's country manager. More details in this report. There was nothing secretive about that 18 million United States dollars signing bonus, which was extended to the government of Guyana by ExxonMobil. That's the contention of ExxonMobil's country manager, Rod Henson.
Let me say that signing bonuses are customary and normal in many petroleum agreements. Not all, but in many around the world as part of the total financial agreement.
Henson was speaking with media operatives on the sidelines of a public lecture hosted by the Ministry of Natural Resources Saturday night. Pressed for answers, the government had told media operatives that it wasn't quite ready to disclose any financial agreement with ExxonMobil, but will do so later this month. This correspondence from the Finance Secretary, Dr. Hector Butts, to the Governor of the Bank of Guyana, Dr. Gobind Ganga, shows the request for the opening of an account for the signing bonus received from ExxonMobil.
In this case, when this agreement was finalized, when negotiations were done and executed, we did pay an $18 million US dollar signing bonus to the Bank of Guyana, to an account that is owned by the government of Guyana and designated by the Ministry of Finance, not to any individual, but to a government bank account designated by the Ministry of Finance.
The country manager reaffirmed ExxonMobil's commitment to transparency.
Disclosure of these terms is something that should be consistent across the industry instead of one company. Transparency initiatives, in order to be successful, should protect proprietary and commercial information, should ensure that they don't violate any country's laws, and should apply to all companies in the extractive industry.
Guyana is currently adapting measures to become a full-fledged member of the extractive industry's Transparency Initiative. And as such, Henson explained, nothing is done in secrecy.
We support transparency, absolutely. We're members of EITI. And when Guyana becomes a fully EITI compliant country, these types of payments will be made public as part of that process.
Chartered accountant and attorney at law Christopher Ram hinted at pursuing private criminal charges against ministers of the government for allegedly failing to deposit the signing bonus from ExxonMobil into the consolidated fund. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan is furious over the damage done to one of the vehicles that was recently donated to the Guyana Police Force by the People's Republic of China. Jeffon Vickery reports.
I got very angry. I wanted to talk personally to the policeman, but the commissioner told me, just keep it, down, because what could I do?
That was Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan, who could not contain his ire at the news of the crash of one of 58 pickup trucks that had recently been donated to the police by the People's Republic of China. Mr. Ramjatan further noted that although the incident has had some negative impact on the force yet again, an investigation has been launched to ascertain whether it was indeed the fault of the police rank.
As a minister, you really can't do anything, and that was one of the policemen who heard me when we deployed the thing a couple of days ago. In any event, look, these things are going to happen, and I suppose, yes, I have made some new, standard operating procedures, but let's see how the investigation goes.
Apart from Minister Ramjatan, President David Granger, at the commissioning of the vehicles and other equipment, had urged the ranks to take extreme care of the donated equipment, as if it was their very own. Mr. Ramjatan, however, stated that after the investigation is completed, action will be taken.
As I have said to officers and ranks, you drive recklessly that caused the damage of the vehicle, you will be surcharged. and I probably will have my very first example being put in place there. But I do not want to deny the man due process. Let's hear what the investigation. It could be that the other car was wrong or whatever it is. But let's hear what the investigation
What you would have said to him?
Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Javon. It's nothing but great pretense. That's the view of Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu as he assessed the PPP's stance on the sugar industry. He says only class actors could pull off that stunt the PPP is trying in the House. Hear more from Rodin James.
During the 2018 budget debates, which were held from Monday to Friday last, the state of the ailing sugar industry was the highlight of the opposition's presentations, and they did not hesitate to apportion blame to the coalition for the problems in the sugar belt, and more recently, the laying off of sugar workers. When Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu contributed to the budget debates on Friday, he responded to the claims by the opposition.
You have to be a class actor to come into an August assembly such as this and pretend that you had no part in the decimation of the lives of the sugar workers, that you came here with your hands lean like Pontius Pilate, and you will pretend that you didn't know where the descent of sugar began.
The Prime Minister says the sorry state of the sugar industry is a burden that should be carried exclusively by the PPP.
And then LBI went, and Diamond went. Then with some haste, the learned leader of the opposition, the honorable leader of the opposition, Desmond was in the driving seat, as if they had the devils on their tail. They demarcated the land in Providence and handed out to their friends, many of their friends. Not a single sugar worker was offered a piece of land after Providence was closed. After Diamond was closed, they had some pieces of land for housing. And many of their friends were given the first preference, and then they started to give away the sugar workers' land. It is not the closure of the estate that was striking. It is what you do with the resources of the estate. And when you try to shift workers, having shut down LBI, and you call it integrate LBI with Enmore, you created 2 workshops, 2 junior staff, 2 sets of plow hands, 2 sets of this, 2 sets of that.
Also speaking on the issue of sugar and the closing off the debates was Finance Minister Winston Jordan, who described sugar as a major national problem.
I'll show you how much money has been lost in sugar on the previous government. All the crocodile tears crying to deer. They ought to be ashamed that they're using the plight of the workers to promote and foster their own ends. They ought to be ashamed of it. They ought to be ashamed of it. But it's a national problem, and we have to stop the politics and get together to solve this national problem.
The finance minister is suggesting that the PPP go to the sugar belt and tell sugar workers the truth and nothing but the truth. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. The Citizen Security Program is providing $1 million to enable DNA testing at the forensic laboratory. Tests are expected to be done as soon as next year. Hear more from Javon Vickery.
Currently, all DNA tests are done outside of Ghana, and it costs a lot of money and consumes a lot of time. According to Minister of Public Security Kamraj Ramjatan, since construction of the multi-million-dollar forensic laboratory, there has been mounting concern regarding the capability of the lab. On Saturday, Minister Ramjatan announced that through the Citizen Security Program, funding will be made available for DNA testing to be done locally before the first half of next year.
Indeed, the equipment for the DNA is going to cost in the vicinity of $1 million. But indeed, the Citizen Security Program has allocated that sum of money, and the procurement processes will have to be gone through for purposes of getting those equipment in.
Minister Ramjatan said that in the meantime, the security of exhibits and other evidence is being addressed by the authorities. He said training of qualified technicians will also be done before the equipment arrives in Guyana. Mr. Ramjatan claimed that the design of the lab was flawed.
And that is why we had to recall the Barbadian expert, some Miss Corbin, I forgot her name, but so that she can come in to see that which we have now, whether it matched up. And it did not, quite frankly. And so we had to do some reconstruction works before. Then the Americans, through the ambassador, indicated through their experts that we haven't as yet reached the stage for that quality of DNA testing. And we had to wait until we get almost all the other things fixed, the infrastructural work, the integrity system, and the ventilation system. In
April 2011, the former People's Progressive Party Civic Administration had signed a contract valued $450 million Ghana dollars with Courtney Bend Construction Services for the construction of the lab. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Citizenship Minister Winston Felix on Saturday turned the sod for the commencement of a multi-million-dollar passport office in the East Berbice region. The details in this Rodin James report.
Minister Felix says the initiative was birthed out of a desire to reduce the lengthy queues at the Central Immigration Office in Georgetown. Mr. Felix reminded Berbicians that the coalition administration is creating a new engagement with citizens all across the country. He said that engagement involves taking Georgetown-based government services to all capital towns in the country.
You live in a town, you must get government service in that town. And it would be unnecessary for you to have to journey to Georgetown, wait in long lines that were there first, before you can get a simple thing like a passport. We want to get rid of those inconveniences.
The minister recalled that when the coalition took office in 2015, the Central Passport Office had been processing approximately 650 passport applications daily, and most of those applications were from persons out of Georgetown. He said because of the measures which were undertaken, those long queues have vanished and the services offered are efficient.
It's not just transferring decentralizing the department, is decentralizing the department with the efficiency of the current operations in Georgetown. That is what we want here. We don't want to bring the inefficiencies from there, which we have gotten rid of, here.
Mr. Felix reassured Berbicians that this is just the beginning of good things for the region.
While we are doing this job, we are giving consideration to applications for passport online. It should have come by now, but we had a little issue.
Bartica and Region 2 are earmarked for passport offices next, the minister said. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
While some local businesses are reducing their workforce, the Giftland Group has now opened its Food Max supermarket, providing employment for a number of Guyanese. Kristen Macklingam was at the opening ceremony.
Food Max Supermarket is one of the country's largest supermarkets located on the ground floor of the Giftland Mall, Pattinson, Greater Georgetown. Shoppers can now expect a wide range of products at competitive prices, but more importantly, emphasis is being placed on providing opportunities for locals, says Chairman of the Giftland Group, Roy Bepat.
We're going to talk to the farmers. There's farmers right now that's making things like kale and cauliflower and broccoli, things that we import, and we will encourage and we will work with them. There's just a little disparity between the imported price and the local price, where the local products are a little more expensive. But those work with market demand and flows, and we hope to be able to work with the farmers, the breeders, the fish, everybody, to be able to bring fresh, good Guyanese products to your table.
Roy Bepat during the opening of the new supermarket on Sunday. According to Mr. Bipat, Foodmax, which has branded itself as the fresh food specialists, will offer a wide range of local fruits and vegetables, fresh fish and meats, all of which are properly prepared. He noted that presently in the Caribbean, the food import bill stands at over $13 billion and that Guyana can capitalize on this.
And we are sitting in the most land within CARICOM, and we have full access to that market. It is an access that many people would like. It is something that if we were to put our minds together, and I'm willing to speak to anybody about this, and we develop ourselves, we could supply a major part of that $13 billion and that money will come to Guyana and enrich all our lives. We don't need oil. It will help, but we don't necessarily need it. We have enough resources here to make this country very, very strong.
Meanwhile, Minister of Business Dominic Gaskin added that this step taken by Mr. Bipat is one that supports the goal of the government.
Foodmax provides an opportunity for our small farmers to have access to big markets, to be able to have their products on display, have their products marketed and advertised to thousands of persons who will be coming through this mall on a daily basis.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingham.
Thank you, Kristen. Joy was brought to the hearts of hundreds of children of the West Bank of Demerara when they turned up to a Christmas party on Saturday, thrown in their honor by one of Guyana's leading producer of foam mattresses and pillows, Comfort Sleep. Kristen Macklingham was there.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Almost 300 children drawn from the Malgré II Primary, Le Parfait Harmony Primary, Lagrange Primary and Baggersville Primary were feted in keeping with Comfort Sleep's commitment to hosting such parties in various regions for the last 10 years. That's according to Managing Director of Comfort Sleep, Dennis Charan.
It's always a pleasure for me to be doing this. You wouldn't believe it, but it is a pleasure. I love doing this. It's like a hobby for me. I just love looking at these kids. I'm making us, you can't pay for that smile on the face.
He explained that his company provides cooking materials to these schools daily to ensure that students benefit from 3 hot meals every day, weekly. Mr. Charan says that come what may, he will continue to do as much as he can for the less fortunate children in society.
And it's not only about a Christmas party. We have a feeding program, which all of these kids are in. We have 500 kids and over from West Coast, Georgetown, Berbice, and it's all year round. Our feeding program goes through the schools, and this is how it happens. And every year now we give them a party in the different areas, bringing them gifts, a little bit of fancy food.
Meanwhile, Mr. Charan's wife Sabita added that she was more than happy to support her husband in this humanitarian act. It is hoped that with these kind and thoughtful gestures, children are at least happy throughout the Christmas season and more corporate entities come on board to execute similar activities for children throughout the country.
We enjoy doing it, myself and husband. We enjoy feeding the kids every year. We come and, it brings joy to us.
Comfort Sleep extended a similar gesture at the Tolmy Reid Rehabilitation Center on Monday. The center is celebrating its jubilee this week. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingham.
Your sportscast is ahead.
Thanks for staying tuned. I'm Colin Abrams with this edition of the HGP Sportscast. As the road to Mecca 4 continues, teams continue to stamp their superiority over the rest. Sunday night's games produced wins for the Cobras, Raiders, and Ravens. But it was the Ravens-Bulls game that had fans at the edge of their seats. Here's more. The first game saw Raiders slightly knocking the Guardians over with a 59-52 point victory. The first quarter of the game ended 13-9 in favor of the Raiders, but the second quarter ended in a tie 16-16. After this, it was smooth sailing for the Raiders, who ended each remaining quarter above the Guardians. In the next game, Cobras portrayed sheer dominance over the Pacesetters. Cobras scored a massive 84 points, while Pacesetters came in with just 64. Travis Burnett of the Cobras produced more than half of his team's points, putting 41 on the scoreboard. But it was the Ravens-Bulls game that had fans at the edge of their seats when the game ended 76-75 in favor of the Ravens. The first quarter ended 14-22. The Bulls dominated this quarter. Then the second quarter ended 18-17. At halftime, the Ravens were behind with just 32 points. The Bulls had a 7-point lead. All this came crashing down in the third quarter when the Ravens ended the quarter 24-21, still trailing behind the Bulls. It was in the final quarter that the Ravens decided to pick the pace up and put pressure on the Bulls' defense, which cracked. But they still managed to keep the point gap at just 1 point before the game ended. Quite an exciting night of basketball there. Now we turn our attention to the GFF. The Guyana Football Federation, partnering with Corona Beer, is keeping the game of football in Guyana alive and continuing the tradition during the holiday season. Launched the GFF Super 16 Year-End Classic. The Knockout Football Tournament is scheduled to commence this Friday, December 15, and will wrap up with a grand finale and a third-place playoff on Monday, January 1, 2018. It will feature 10 elite clubs, 5 of the country's top non-elite clubs, and an Indigenous All-Stars team. The venues for the matches are yet to be determined by the GFF. However, it will be disclosed to the public as soon as it becomes available, according to the GFF. They did give some idea of which grounds may be used.
Venues, the first round we'll see us playing at venues all across the country, and then as we go down to semi-finals and finals, we then narrow those down to one of the better known venues. Therefore, we can see matches being played at Mackenzie Sports Club ground, the Denham-Stell Community Center ground, at Borby's, the number 5 ground, in Georgetown, the Tocqueville ground, possibly the GDF ground, to try to get a spread, and even the Buxton Community Center ground on the east coast of Demerara, to ensure we have.
Ian Alves, competitions director of the GFF. Teams have been selected for the tournament that were successful in their play throughout the year, and with this, the GFF expects quite an interesting tournament.
GFF Corona Super 16 Classic is billed to be an exciting and exhilarating, highly competitive year-end tournament. As many of my colleagues within the media may recall, in 2016 I did share with the press that we are looking at consolidating the football activity at the end of the year. This tournament here doesn't necessarily accomplishes that in its entirety, but it's an indication as to where we're going in the year.
President of the GFF, Wayne Ford. He further went on to state that the aim in 2018 is to have this tournament begin from October until January 1 of the following year. Top Brands Marketing and Promotions Manager of Corona Beer in Guyana, Marvin Gray, said that they believe in tradition and jumped at the opportunity to give back to the community and country for the holiday season.
We saw this as a niche, not just to be a part of this, but to grow with this. So as you see us representing here, this is just the beginning of something beautiful. Football is called a beautiful game, and I believe it's the most beautiful sport in the world. I believe that the potential that we have here, it needs to be more developed in such a way that we can actually realize our potential and compete to the highest levels.
The tournament's top prize is set at $2 million, second prize $1 million, third place is $500,000, and fourth place will take away $250,000 together with football equipment. Can't wait to attend those games. In cricket, Shane Chillingford spun a web around the Jaguars batsmen to earn a dramatic tie in the 6th-round game between Guyana and the Windward Island Hurricanes.
It was the first time in the 152-year history of Windy's first-class championship that a match ended in a tie. That took place on Sunday when the Guyana Jaguars tied with the Windward Island in the 6th round of the Digicel Regional 4-Day Tournament at the National Stadium, Providence. Windward Islands batted first and were bowled out for 117 on the first day in 54.3 overs. Pamal took 5 of those wickets. In the Jaguars' reply, they posted 194 with a lead of 77 runs. In the Windward second innings reply, they were 127 for 6 on the second day with a lead of 50 runs. They were eventually bowled out for 241 on the third day. With Jaguars having over a day and a quarter to get 164 runs, and an impressive bowling attack by the Windwards kept the Jaguars at bay. Vishal Singh, unbeaten on 48 at the start, carried Jaguars hope of victory, but he was LBW to Shane Shillingford in the 5th over of the morning for a top score of 56 with 47 needed. Wicketkeeper Anthony Bramble then led the Jaguars batting, but the Volcanoes continued to apply the pressure, which yielded the scalps of Sharfan Rutherford for 2 and Kimo Paul for 3. Bramble continued to keep the scoreboard ticking, but Shillingford held a return catch to dismiss Versami Parmal and had Goodish Moti caught at slip in the space of 3 balls in his 16th over, leaving the Jaguars needing 7. Fast medium bowler Kyle Mears conceded 4 from his next over and Shillingford 2 from the first ball in the following over before he dramatically trapped Bramble LBW with just 1 run needed for victory. For the HGP Sportscast, I'm Stanford Howard.
Thank you, Stanford. The Kiwis are in a commanding position on day 3 as the Windies' batting continues to fail in the second test at Hamilton. Stanford Howard reports.
The Windies' hope of redemption in the second test against New Zealand is fading as the Kiwi takes command of the game. The Windies batted poorly in their first innings reply to the Kiwis' score of 373, ending their innings on 221 all out. New Zealand then added 291 runs for 8 declared just after the drinks break on the 3rd day and placed the West Indies in. West Indies again lost quick wickets in their second innings and were 30 for 2 and trailing by 414 runs with 8 wickets in hand at stumps on day 3. For the HGP Sportscast, I'm Stanford Howard.
Thank you, Stanford, and that has brought us to the end of this edition of the HGP Sportscast. Before we go, remember, adversity causes some men to break and others to break records. Goodbye.
Ruckus in Parliament. Police invited to remove PPP MP. Dignity, not a byword in the National Assembly. Mutilated body of East Coast teen found in cemetery. 5 arrested. Nothing secretive about US 18 million signing bonus. Signing bonuses are customary, says ExxonMobil. And 3 killed in Maikoni smash-up. Those were our major headlines. For these stories and more, please go to our website. It's www.hgptv.com. I'm Travis Chase. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.